Our pattern today is going to be a mirror dip. That's the name of the fly. I'm starting out about 3 eye lengths behind the eye of the hook, and I'm using some green, or olive green I suppose, sheer 14-aught thread. And this one is kind of a take on the $3 dip, which is why it's called the mirror dip, or the Serendipity. All great patterns, and this is just a variation on that. We're going to be using some tinsel on it that's going to make it almost shine mirror-like, which is how you get mirror nymph. I've got a size 16 hook here in my vise. It's a kind of a scud curved hook, and then I've got it facing downwards a little bit just so that I can tie in the materials better. So the first material I'm going to be tying in is going to be some micro flashabou, and it's kind of in this pearl kind of a color. Because it's micro, I'm going to use 4 strands of it. I've got those strands here. You can see they're fairly small. We're just going to go ahead and tie those in to the top of our hook shank. Mostly I'm focused on getting this on top. I know the length is long, but I can just draw that material backwards to the size that I want it. Right after tying in the crystal flash, I'm going to take a piece of brassie size copper wire. We're going to use this to make the fly a little bit more durable, also give us a little bit of a hint of ribbing on it. So same thing as the last time, a couple of wraps there. I'm going to draw the copper wire back until it's right about where I want the abdomen on the fly to end. From there I'm going to grab both the flashabou and the copper wire, and you notice I tied them both right up at the top at the very beginning, and I'm doing that so that I can keep the ends of this narrow as possible as we come around the bend of the hook here. So we're going to take this kind of deep. So I'm using the olive thread here, and the reason is that's kind of the color that I want to show through that transparent flashabou. If I used black thread or just left the hook bare, it's a black nickel, and so black would be showing through. And that's not really what I want here. I really want that flashabou to pop. I want to keep the body fairly slim. We're going to go ahead and take a few wraps to build a tiny little bit of a taper, but I don't want to go overboard here. I just want a nice smooth surface for that flashabou to travel up the abdomen. So first I'm going to take those 4 strands of this micro flashabou. I'm not going to use my rotary yet. You see I just about leaned into it. I want these wraps to be as close to touching turns as possible. If you hold it closer to the shank of the hook and pull it fairly tight, it'll help keep these from separating from one another. You can see already I've got some separation there. And I'm not in a hurry, so I'm going to go back, get those strands back where I want them, and then I'll just continue. They separate again, I'll do the same thing all over again. Starting to separate again. Probably can see that. I'm going to go ahead and let that travel onto the shank of the hook here. With one turn, I'll take that right out of my bobbin cradle and move my cradle out of the way. I'll just take a couple of wraps to secure. Flashabou is very slippery, so you don't want this to slide around on you. So once I tie it off, I'm keeping it tight, and I'm going to go actually backwards, and I'm going to tie over the top of it to even help it secure even more in place. So Hopefully you can see that. I'll just come on in with my scissors and I can remove my flashabou here. I'm going to take my copper wire and I'm going to counter wrap it. So I want these wraps to go in the opposite direction of what I just put on with the flashabou. Now I'll allow these wraps to lay across the wraps of that flashabou and just help it stay a little bit more durable. We're going to do just about the same as we did with the flashabou. I'm going to take this up to where we've got a couple of eye lengths behind the eye of the hook. I'll just take a couple of wraps over the top of that to kind of secure that in place. Pull it backwards, take a couple more wraps, and then I can just use our helicopter friction method and just break that right off. So from here I'm going to do something that would have seemed very unusual when I first started tying flies, but I'm going to tie our green thread off just with my whip finisher here. I'll grab my thread remover and we're going to switch to a black thread because I want the head of this fly to be black. So I'm just going to change the thread right here in the middle of my fly, and we'll put that black on just like we would when we're starting a fly. I'm going to start there and I'm going to wrap over the tag end. I'm going to bring that up to where we're going to tie in our next material. It's going to be right around in this area right here. Then I'll just go ahead and grab my thread cutter again and I'll cut off that tag end. And just like that, we're a different color. So yeah, it's okay to tie off one color and just start with a different color. Next we're going to just tie in a stubby wing here, and I'm going to use some trigger point. You can use Zelon, anything that's kind of white, translucent pearl. I'm going to tie this in right on the top of the hook and right in the middle. So we're just going to take that wrap. I'm going to take one wrap and then I'm just going to make sure I've got it where I want it, I'm just going to pull all of that up. Then I can secure this tighter with a couple of thread wraps. And yeah, it looks really messy at this point. We're going to take that's going over the eye of the hook. I'm going to pull that backwards. And I'm going to take both of those two pieces combined. I'm going to tie over the top of those. This will be trimmed out a lot when we get to the end of our fly here. So from here, I'm just going to focus on kind of building up a semi-beefy head that angles down towards the eye of the hook. And I do want to make sure I've got some of this material covered up that's still showing through a little. From there, I've got a nice clean area where I can whip finish, so we'll just go ahead and grab our whip finisher. Can go ahead and remove our black thread now. And I'll come in with my scissors. I'm going to want to clip that wing so it's a little less than half the body length. So I'm going to finish off with some UV resin. So I've got a pretty good glop of it on here. But that should hopefully help me get this all the way around. Get it up on all of those pieces of thread where you can. All the way up to that abdomen. Bring it back around this way. and do the same thing, just making sure that it goes all the way to where I want it. This is going to provide some durability on those thread wraps, but it is also going to give us a really nice pronounced black head. Just grab our torch. So there you have it. We've got the mirror dip. Again, just to take on the Serendipity or the $3 dip. With that translucent flashabou, you can actually bring out different hints of color through that. You can see with the olive, I've got a little hint of olive coming through. You could switch that up to different colors and change the fly. Sometimes I'll take it a little deeper into the bend of the hook or have the head a little bit smaller, but this thing will fish. So grab yourself a hook, throw it in the vise, and give this one a shot.